Welcome to Along the Rock, brought to you by the Radar Free Press. I am your host, Kaitlyn Blum. Today with us, we have Sheriff Booker from Whiteside County, and you're here to tell us about the episode you were featured on of FBI True. So what was the incident that was featured on that show?
What it was about was a kidnapping case that happened in 2017, which a couple was taken from their house, actually kidnapped, and ransom money was attempted to be taken from them, and then we recovered them down the road.
Wow, that's a terrifying kind of situation. So, it's been a few years since then, and then, after a little bit, you were reached out, they reached out to you and said, hey, would you like to be on this episode? Like, what was your initial reaction to getting that phone call?
It was an honor to do it. A lot had to do with because the FBI was involved in the case. The FBI was covered a lot on TV with their cases. But in my years as a police officer, 34 years now, this was the biggest case I've ever been involved in. I actually was the incident commander in this whole incident, so I definitely had a lot of firsthand knowledge of the case, so that's why they've reached out to me and had me present and show them all the evidence and stuff in this case.
Do you feel like it was a very accurate retelling of the incident, or were you like, maybe they could have done that differently?
Yeah, they really did a good job with production of it. The first one we did a showing on, they had the victims part of the broadcast, and then the second one was just a setting in a bar, myself, an FBI agent, and then a retired FBI agent talked about the case, and it was a really neat experience, flown out to New York and treated like a royalty for a day or so.
That's what I was going to ask about. So you were there for 2 days. What was that like?
I picked up at the airport, and they put us up in the hotel downtown New York, chauffeured us everywhere we needed to go, and it was really a neat experience.
How is the community back here? I'm sure quite a few people in Whiteside County have seen this episode by now. Have you heard any reactions from the community?
Yeah, a lot of reaction. The first thing I always do is I contact the victims, the Van Oostens, and I check with them to make sure this is okay that I do stuff, because the whole case is involving them, and they're like, oh yes, as long as it's positive and make a positive impact with police, because they're so supportive on how the police handled this situation with teamwork and everything. And our county, our community is so much behind the police. It's really good.
Yeah, you were saying like a positive impact with the police force. So what lessons do you think the police and the FBI learned from this incident?
Definitely working together. You get so much more accomplished when everyone works as one. As a police officer, sometimes that's tough. Sometimes, agencies working well together. But, we had the FBI, we had state police, we had local police, and everyone worked really good together. Any leads that came in, it didn't matter if I told an FBI agent to follow up on it or a detective from Sterling. They took it and ran with it and did whatever needed to be done with it.
Yeah, so it's about collaboration and communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the bottom line, teamwork.
Yeah.
We got so much more accomplished by all working together.
That's so great to hear that so many you think of these different groups as being very siloed, but in reality, you guys are, crossing over, talking a lot,
Yeah, this is really the first time I ever worked with the FBI on a case, and, being that it was involved with a bank, and that's why we reached out to them, and, agents from Rockford, Quad Cities came down and helped us and just worked tremendously with us and all the local police.
That's great. So I was going to ask you, what's your personal opinion about sharing incidents and stories like this through television and whatnot?
Yeah, I like to get the word out, because this is probably a once-in-a-lifetime experience as a police officer, where we actually had a full-blown kidnapping case that ended where we found them alive. A lot of times the victims are found dead, and I do think that we saved these two from the final, where I think he was probably going to kill them once he got everything he needed from them. Mm-hmm. He had all the tools. He had a gun. He had a shovel, duct tape, plastic, and had them in a dungeon, where he kept them. And I really think that it could have been a worse outcome if it wasn't for great police work.
So it's just a great shining example of like what our police force is capable of. That is good. It's just a really positive story. Like, well, it's a positive ending to a really, rough story.
Yeah,
but,
terrible, rough story. But again, it all comes back to teamwork. Some of the most information we got from this was who is now the chief of police in Sterling, Alex Javira. He provided us with some stuff to look up businesses through the Secretary of State in Illinois that none of us were aware of, and that's who the check was made out to, that this bad guy wanted when he went in to get the money from the bank.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So that everybody, like, people you wouldn't expect, like they have this, some people have unique information, some people have other information. That's so interesting, just like how everybody worked together on it.
Yeah, so many have so many specialties.
Yeah.
The police officer has been, maybe a police officer for 5 years, but had a specialty and knew something because of a case they handled. Mm-hmm. And the chief of police in Sterling, Alex, had done this because of prior knowledge on cases that he handled when he was a detective. So, yeah, it's just incredible police work, and everyone worked together, and that's why we had such a great outcome.
Like you said, incredible police work.
Yes.
That is really cool. So what do you hope viewers take away from this episode?
Just to realize that, first, unfortunately, these major crimes happened in Whiteside County. This was back in 2017, full-blown kidnapping case. They do happen. And when they do, the police are very well equipped to handle them. If we work together, we use resources, just because I'm the sheriff of the county doesn't mean I have all the answers. I'm willing to listen to anyone, use resources, listen to other agencies, but we have to work together in order to get the final outcome, which is to save lives and protect people.
Yeah, like you said, an excellent use of resources on like the municipal, county, and federal level. Wow. So
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add about this experience?
Just that, the more we get this information out, the better. I'm willing to talk with anyone ever about this case because it was such a great example of how police work together, and you do well when you work together. One guy can't stand out on him by himself and try and solve all the crimes. You got to work together, and this was just a great example. We have great support in our area of law enforcement because I think law enforcement as a whole does a very good job.
I love that. Like you said, it was a great example. Well, thank you, Sheriff Booker, for being here with me today.
You're very welcome.
And then thank you to our listeners and to our production crew, of course. And remember that the Radar Free Press is free, so we do rely on those likes, shares, and comments to keep us thriving. And if you want to see more stories like this, check out theradar.online.